Hey everyone, we just created the player class and you'll notice it's right over here at the bottom of our script. We gave the player a card array for their hand and an int index. We haven't actually created a variable to keep track of all of our players, so let's go to the top of our script and create, just like we had a card array for our deck, let's make a player array for our players. And we want to initialize this, so your game will have a certain number of players. Maybe that's 4, or maybe that's 8, maybe it's 2. You're going to go to your start initialization area here, and then we're going to say players equals new player, and then for the array size, feed in whatever size your game might be. I'm going to use 4 as an example. Now we also want to actually start up our players. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a temporary card array to feed in as their hand. We'll call this temp hand. So this will be a new card array of size 0. Why? Just to make sure that we don't run into any errors. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go for int I equals 0. I is less than players.length. I'm trying to write this code so that even if you have a different length, you'll still be able to use most of it. I++. We need to kind of set up each of our players one by one. So we're going to start with player using the class P equals new player. We're just kind of like creating a blank player class, and we're going to assign it at the very end. P.hand equals temp hand, which we just created. We're going to say P.playerIndex. I think I called that index equals I. I is the number right here in the loop. And oh, my voice cracked there. P dot. If you wanted, you could even like go back into your player class and let's say you wanted to add something else like public string username. You could even do that, and there are a couple other properties you may want to add. So you can go and say p.username equals, and then we'd want to set it up in some way so they're different. So we could say player and then give it a space plus I. And then at the very end, what we want to do, now that we've set some values for P, we want to go back and say players I equals P. So this will basically assign all of our values for us, so we've initialized our players array. Alright, good, we're done with that. No more initializing stuff to take care of. Actually, I guess at the bottom of the start we do want to call one thing. We're going to create a new function. So I've minimized the shuffle function, I'm just writing below that. We're going to create a function called deal1, or deal method 1. Let's be a little bit more descriptive. So this first method will work for static hand sizes. That means it's good for games like poker, not good for games like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, where you're drawing from the deck. It's not good for something like Go Fish, you know, where you might have a different hand size every turn. So what we're going to do is we're just going to look at the top card of the deck and then assign it to the first card of the first player. And then we'll look at the second card of the deck, assign it to the second card of the first player, etc. until we've filled every player's hand. So the way this works is we're going to basically just create an integer to keep track of where we are in the deck. So it'll be like int cards dealt equals 0. And then after that we want to loop through each player. So we're going to go for int I equals 0, just like before. I is less than players.length. I++. And as we loop through each player, what we want to do is we want to fill up their hand. So we need to create a temporary card array right now. We can call that dealt hand, the hand that they're dealt, equals new hand, and then, oh, not hand, sorry, card. And we'd give it the hand size. So for my game, I'm going to say they get 7 cards. The next thing we want to do is we want to actually fill in each of the cards in their hand. So I could say dealt hand, and then the index of 0 is equal to deck of cards, or deck, and then I'm going to go cards dealt. Right now cards dealt is still 0. We just created it up here. So it's still 0. Whenever I deal the next card, I want it to be 1. So what I'll do is I'll do cards dealt plus plus, and that'll change it by increasing by 1. What's cool about setting it up this way is then I can just copy it, paste it so that I have 7 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then increase each of these by 1 every time. Notice how it ends on 6 because we started on 0. So we've now filled up this temporary card array, and we just need to assign it to the player's hand. So the next thing we do is we say players i.hand equals dealt hand. And that's it. We've now created a function to deal out all our cards. Deal method 1. Right down here we're going to put deal method 1 where our shuffle used to be. I did comment out shuffle for testing purposes because it just works better if the deck is in order. After that we can totally turn shuffle back on. I'll hit play and I'm going to look at my deck manager game object so that it shows up in the inspector. So I've pulled up right here the drop down menu for players, and it now has a size of 4 because there are 4 players, and each player has a hand of size 7, which is exactly what we want. And then if you look at the cards in the hand, you'll notice they are sequentially ordered. And player 2 does not have any of the cards that player 1 had. And player 3 does not have any of the cards that player 2 had. So that's it. That means our deal function is working. You could totally turn shuffle back on. If you did have shuffle on, I'm just going to show you what difference it makes. It would be much harder to verify that your dealing is working, but it still works the same way. We have all different cards, and every person has 7 cards. Alright, that's it for this video. I'm going to show you another method for shuffling, or sorry, for dealing, and it tends to be my favorite, but it does involve a little bit more code. So stay tuned, watch the next video. See you guys soon.